Okay, so now we're just going to go through how to draw complicated wedding dresses, and that mainly just means lace. Basically, it's not that hard, but it looks hard. So I'm just going to show a few different methods, and you can kind of incorporate the ones that you feel like match your style. So we'll just start on a zoom in of the lace. So a couple of things that I think are most important is a similar, I mean, it's the same approach as I have if I'm doing complicated prints and patterns and things like that, is that it's not about getting everything accurate. That's not really that important. What is important is ratios. So this dress here, the sizing of the lace sections is there and the placement of them. So you see that every single one of them has a gap around it, so they're not, they're not next to each other. And then the other thing, how much space that lace takes up. So this lace probably takes up 40% of that dress, like this section here. So I know that wherever I draw, the lace needs to take up, the complicated area needs to take up 40%. And then the other 60% can just be the dress or these little kind of little motifs or something. So it's not about kind of zooming in and thinking, okay, look, this is the lace and I've now got to get every single section correct, because that's just boring and there's just no need. So what you want to do instead is just, again, look at it, think, okay, how much of the lace covers the dress? The placement of it. So we've got this kind of almost checkerboard placement, so we can copy that. And then the other thing is I just look at random little motifs. So I'll just take one or two, or maybe two or three. So here we've got this kind of flower, and then we've got these kind of leaf motifs, and then everything kind of has like a little stem coming off of it like this. In between all of these are these little like crisscross diamonds. So those are kind of the four things that I would look at and think, okay, let's just replicate that. So if I were to draw this, I'm gonna draw it as a dress rather than like a swatch. So I'm just gonna make up the bride. Again, I don't know all the details of the dress, but we're just gonna make it up. So it's kind of something a bit like this. And it has some lacing details down the arms. And she's also wearing a veil, which you might as well. So something like that. I'm gonna give her some lippy. So there's 1,001 ways to draw lace, and I'll do 4. So I'm just gonna do that. That one's getting off lightly. So as you see in this picture, like there's kind of a warm tone to the garment. Like it's not an ice kind of gray. It's not a white. There's ever so slightly warm tone to it. So I know that I can basically, this definitely helps when drawing lace, but I can basically put a layer down and then we can build on top of that. So I'm going to just swatch a warm gray. I think that might work for this one because it is like a more vintagey looking dress, dusty. I'm joking. So I would just put, actually I would have gone for a 0 rather than a 1, but what can you do? So just going to let that dry for a bit. So what we're going to do, let me just write this down. So we'll do markers, going to do fine liner, white gel pen, and color pencil. Oh wait, no, those two go together. Ignore me. It's markers and white gel pen. So we'll do watercolor here. So we've got that blanket tone there, and then what I'll do as well is I'll put a skin tone down because the arm is see-through. So just do that. So a little thing that I do when I'm drawing anything that it's like a see-through transparent layer on top of the skin, is you leave like a millimeter or 2 gap around the outside. And then that just gives the illusion that there's something on there rather than coloring it all the way up to the side. So just kind of leave this like little white border around it, and then that kind of helps show that there's fabric on top. So now my favorite part, which is the white gel pen. So black pro markers and these Uniball white gel pens are the two things that I buy most often because I just get through them ridiculous. Okay, proven. Point proven there. Just get through them at a ridiculous rate. So what I want to do is, we see that the lace for the, if I do it over here, the lace for the bodice and the sleeve part is all lace, and then the skirt part of the dress is a little bit more fabric-y. So we can fill this with the motif. So we see that there's like this kind of detail like that. It's not about being accurate, it's just about seeing a couple things that you notice. Like that, and it kind of just fills the space, and that's separate. And then I see that there's kind of this thing here. So I'm just squiggling basically, I'm just doing some squiggles and then occasionally mimicking something that I see. This is what gives you bloody RSI. I remember when I was commissioned to draw Spice Girls, and Jerry Halliwell had it was a Union Jack dress, but it was all sequins, and I must have done the dots on that for the sequins about 1,000,000 times, but oof. Getting flashbacks. That was my Vietnam. So that's how I would do it. So it took 2 seconds. I'm literally just doing squiggles that look similar to that. And then I would do the same thing on the arm as well. It's going to be less visible because it's a brighter tone. You just kind of do some squiggles. And then from a distance, that looks incredibly detailed. And they're going to look at that and think, wow, you caught my dress so well. But it's just like, if I was to use, all I'm doing is kind of filling the space with details like this. It's just scribbles basically. So then we get onto this part here, and then, yeah, what I would do is I'd try a little bit more to mimic what I can see here. So remember, we've got to do the placement, so I'm not going to fill the whole thing because that wouldn't be accurate. But remember that there was this kind of sunflowery thing. Everything's bunched together, so you can do a little motive there. Then there were these diamond crisscrosses, and then I'm going to do a big one there to take up space. So we do the sunflower thing, do the little thing there. I'm kind of just making it up. And I think there is a layer of lace underneath the whole thing, so you can do this subtle broken lined crisscross across the entire thing. Like that, just for a bit more depth. But yeah, that's all I would really do, and I think it doesn't take very long. I mean, I spent longer explaining it than doing it, but that's how I would draw it, and I think that's a pretty accurate match. The only regret I have in life is this was warm grey 1, and I would have ideally liked if there was a warm grey 0, and there is. It's under the iPad, so let's see the difference. There isn't any. What the fuck? I mean, it's ever so slightly lighter, and I think once that dries, it would be lighter still. But yeah, that's what I would have done, a softer tone, but you can't live in regret, people. So that's how I would do it, white gel pen. That's probably what I would do, but that only works if you've got a dress that has that warmer tone underneath, because that wouldn't really work if I was using ice gray or something like that, because the white of the gel pen with the bluer tone of the ice gray just you wouldn't notice it so much. So onto fine liner. So I'm going to put some examples up now of the drawings I used to do when I was in the wedding industry. They look detailed from afar, but it was literally just me scribbling like this. But if you do that over a big enough thing and it's small enough, it looks really detailed. So that's all I would really do. But what I would do here is I might put a base layer down of a little bit of ice gray, just to give a little bit of tone. And then we'll do the skin tone again. So again, we're leaving that millimeter. This is why I don't throw away markers that don't work anymore, because when they don't work anymore, they give you this streaking, and it actually really works when something's a little bit more transparent. Or maybe I'm just a hoarder, I don't know. So that's the base layer that I would put down. Then I would get my thinnest marker, the thinnest fine liner that I have, which I think 0.005. And then I would just do the same thing. So you're just kind of mimicking what you see and just layering up the lines and kind of giving everything an echo, basically. So if you do one line, you just do a couple underneath, like a curve, then a curve. So let me just finish. So this was kind of the sleeve, yeah. So it's just being kind of sketchy. It's about being loose with the lines. You're not being very specific. I'm not putting pressure down because I'm just trying to float across the page, basically. The friction of the page is putting the ink on there rather than me putting the pressure there. But I try and kind of get a little bit of details and stuff. You just don't want anything to clump together too much, because you don't want anything to get too blocky and like go too black. But if you kind of keep it a little bit, and then the same when we get to the arm, so we just kind of keep it Carrying on. Sometimes looks like tattoos, but that's a risk you take. But I'm just squiggling in rough shapes that kind of mimic what I'm seeing in front of me, but I'm not really looking that hard, to be honest. But I will spend a bit more time on the bodice part, because I think there is an actual design there. You can chuck in a few crisscrosses for good measure. Again, it's a term that I like to use, which is the illusion of detail. So you're just drawing so much stuff that people assume that it's very detailed from afar. And then if they get too close, they realize that they'll be like, oh, my 6-year-old could have done that. And you're like, well, they didn't, Becky, so back off. Yeah, something like that. And I do like to twin this with the white gel pen, because if there is any areas that there's too much ink, you can kind of just go back over it and do some squiggles to break up any areas that are a little bit too solid. Why does that sound like what is it, a horse and wagon? Like, what? Something like that. That just breaks up the lines a little bit, but that's how I used to do most of them. So I'm going to do color pencil and then end on watercolor, because I don't think I've ever done lace with watercolor, so we're going to figure it out together. So when I say color pencil, I don't mean do the whole thing in color pencil. I just mean put the base shade down. So this is where we'll get the right one. So warm gray 0. What we'll do is we'll so yeah, I would put the base layer down like that. Then I would get a color pencil. So we'll just test some of these out. This is cool gray, which I think is dark enough to do it. We'll do cool gray because I think we want that bluish tone to differentiate from the other things. I think if we did ice gray, that's too blue. Cool gray is good. So again, what we do is I don't have to worry about the bodice part, but I can just do the same thing. But what's nice about this, you do the exact same thing as you were doing with the fine liner or the white gel pen. But because this isn't black, it's not as stark, it's like a softer approach. So again, we're just gonna look at this and copy some. I just put these down initially for placement, and then I'm like, okay, I can work into them. Yeah, kind of do some softer lines, some not so soft, and just squiggle your way through it, really. I mean, I like all these techniques, so it's not a case of like, oh, my style is one or the other, it's just what I feel like doing. So don't feel like, oh, I have to pick this one and that's me set for life. Like, you can do whatever you want. So that's how I would do it, just squiggles. And again, it's like a middle ground between this one and this one, because it's just a softer approach. So now onto watercolor. I don't know how I'm gonna do this. Okay, so just put a base layer. That's too brown. Maybe this. So that's a lot redder than that suits the rest of it. I probably would have done something like that. Yeah, I think that's fine. So now what I would do is get a thin brush, and I'm gonna put black on it and then just wipe some of that off. And hopefully it's still a little bit wet. And then kind of absorb some of the impact a little bit more. And then I would just kind of be a bit softer in the approach. And have some areas that are a little bit more pigmented and some areas which are basically unseen. But again, it's not something I want to spend too long on, because yeah, I could spend hours getting this correct, but I feel like you lose that spontaneity, and you know, what's the point? So again, I would always recommend cotton paper rather than this mixed media kind of paper for watercolor. It's just, I don't have much left and I don't want to waste it on a random, like this kind of swatch. It's expensive. But I recommend hot press for watercolor, because that one's not got as much texture. Like the cold press is like when you're using fine liner and pencil, it's like trying to draw like on a pavement. It's like cool. So I definitely recommend hot press. It's a lot easier. So what I'm also trying to do is get a variety of brush strokes. So some of them are thinner, more precise, some of them are a little bit more abstract. Yeah, I don't really like that. Maybe I can save it with the white gel pen. I only put that in there because I thought some people are only watercolor, but I just don't think it works for me and my approach. So I was trying to be inclusive and it didn't work. But those are the 4 methods that 3 methods, and one of them just wouldn't do, in how to draw lace